welcome to the Lander Basic Simulation Setup, where we'll go through how to set up the game. We do have these books in the box for you, but we're just going to put this to one side and run it through via this video. The first thing that you have to do is the number of players involved can choose their corporation. So here we have Cellulife in red, Transfusion in yellow, Aspire in blue and Westcott and Benton in green. In this game we're just going to do a two-player setup, and I'll play with Cellulife and Transfusion. So now that we've chosen the options, I'll place my crew mat in front of each of the players, and here you can see that we have the early arrival face up for the crew mat and for the early arrival order options payment mat. There are no difference between the payment between the corporations in this game variation. The next thing that we're going to do is choose turn order. So here we can take our player pieces and the timer. Each player in turn will get one choice at flicking their player piece toward the timer, and the closest player becomes player one. They will be designated as the colony governor, have the colony governor chip, and this is how we choose the turn order. Next we're going to go into the table setup. So here we're going to place the centre hex, and we're going to take out the resource tile tray, and we're going to start building the board like so. Now, if you get a 0 tile, which you can see on the top of the face, we don't use any of the 0 tiles within the basic simulation setup phase, although they will be used as part of the game. So we just put these to one side, and we continue building the board. So I'm just going to build the board here next to me for ease, and you just click these together like a jigsaw puzzle very randomly, and you can see that we have the board coming together quite nicely. Now these sectors are the representation of 3 resource types within the game. So we have green being food, grey being titanium, and blue being energy. And these represent the dominant land use of the land classified by this use. Okay, so here we have our central playing area. So we can put the 0 tiles back in the box in a random order, and now we're going to set up the table. We can bring the resources out next to us, and we can bring the activity card tray out next to us as well. Now here you probably want to spend some time shuffling through the decks so that we have a nice random distribution of the cards. The next thing we're going to do is take the mission card decks, and here you can see that we're going to play with the silver and gold decks, and just place these on the table next to us like so. Now that I'm designated as player 1, we're going to claim our sectors. So here you would identify the different sector values and make an assessment of what sector you would like to go on by the number. One thing that we could suggest if this is your first game is to have one of each of the colours, as this will probably make it easier for you if this is your first time of playing. So here, as player 1, I get to place one piece. Now, player 2, and I will do this in the absence of another player, will place 2 pieces. If you were in a 3-player game, it would work through so that the last player would place their 2 pieces. So here, they might go on titanium and food, and then it comes back around again, so that the next player in turn gets a piece, and I will place on a titanium because I have energy, and then I will go on this food sector. And then it would come back around to the last player in turn, who would, with each of their players placing a piece, so that they would say, okay, well, I will have an energy sector. Now that each player has their third sectors claimed, we're now going to disseminate the decks for the crew members that are applicable for the basic simulation variant. Here there's a silver icon for the crew members that are going to be in the game, and if you look through the deck you'll find a little black icon on the right hand side for the crew members used in the more advanced versions. So we can just take these out and put them back in the box. From this point you would shuffle the decks and we would have our crew members. So the colony governor gets the first crew member and player 2 gets their crew members like so. Now within the starting game we then can turn over the crew member and place them face up like so. What we then do is look at our crew members and choose our leader. So in this example you would keep them face down and place them back on the crew mat until each player had made their choice. In turn order you can then flip over the crew member, and this would get flipped over as well for all players to see, and then player 1 starts by reading aloud their leadership ability. Now each leadership ability, it's only the text box at the bottom, so you would just read out, I have, for example, in here, Mr. Hal Forrest. He's a theoretical physicist from Canada, and he has the leadership ability of being so inspirational that he can use the leadership ability of all of his crew members. So in this example, you would then read aloud the second crew member. This would be the only example that this would apply. So the other player would be aware that I can complete missions using 1 less titanium. Player 2 would then read aloud their leadership ability, and if you're in a game whereby you have 3 or 4 players, each player would do this in turn. We then set up the mission roster. Here we can see that we start with 2 silver missions and 2 gold missions. We can then set up the player pieces, so for each player we are going to place a piece on the N for prepare for year end, and you can note that the early arrival observation track is ignored for basic simulation. Once the player pieces were set up, the setup is complete. You can then refer to the round procedure and round setup cards and then the negotiation cards for the flow of the game. This would start with basic simulation with player 1 drawing a sector, and play would begin from there. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for the early arrival and planned arrival variants in the coming videos. Thank you.